Welcome to worship in the Unitarian Universalist Church of Charlotte. The European Organization for Nuclear Research, better known by its acronym CERN, is in Geneva. It operates the most extensive particle physics laboratory in the world and is home to the Large Hadron Collider. On the CERN campus, in between two research facilities, there is a large bronze statue of the Hindu deity Shiva. Shiva is depicted as Nataraja, the cosmic dancer, energetically engaged in the Tandava, the dance that, according to Hindu mythology, includes creation, preservation, and destruction. Physicist Fritjof Capra explains, modern physics has shown that the rhythm of creation and destruction is not only manifest in the turn of the seasons and in the birth and death of all living creatures, but is also the very essence of inorganic matter. For modern physicists, then, he continues, Shiva's dance is the dance of subatomic matter. Aidan Randall Condi is a postdoc student working at CERN. About the statue on those grounds, he wrote, "So in the light of day, when CERN is teeming with life, Shiva seems playful, reminding us that the universe is constantly shaking things up, remaking itself, and is never static. But by night, when we have more time to contemplate the deeper questions, Shiva literally casts a long shadow over our work. Shiva reminds me that we still don't have the answer to one of the biggest questions presented by the universe. And that every time we collide the beams, we must take the cosmic balance sheet into account." Today, and again next week, in keeping with this congregation's visionary commitment to societal transformation, we reflect on the rhythm of creation and destruction. We dance along with Shiva, the cosmic dance, acknowledging, as today's epigraph indicates, that the way to create is, at least at times, to destroy. Today we attend to dismantling. Next week, to reconstituting. Welcome to visitor and to member alike. As we prepare to sing, I invite you to offer today an especially warm welcome to someone seated near you.
time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to build up, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven. A time of love, a time of hate, a time of war, a time of peace, a time that you may embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to gain, a time to lose, a time to rend, a time to sow, a time for love, a time for hate, a time for peace. I swear it's not too late.
Our chalice lighting words come from The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. To accept one's past, one's history, is not the same as drowning in it. An invented past can never be used. It cracks and crumbles under the pressures of life like clay in a season of drought.
To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven.
Our reading today is from Desiree Attaway. We are born into a social system which teaches us to accept things as they are. We are rewarded for accepting things as they are. We are congratulated for accepting things as they are. We become model members of society when we accept things as they are. We gain comfort, money, connection, and power when we accept things as they are. People who go against the grain pay the price. Oppression is the norm, not the exception. Justice is the exception, not the norm. The simplest thing is to do nothing, but we have failed to realize that we have become participants in our own oppression by doing nothing. The institutions, systems of this country are not broken. They are doing exactly what they are meant to be doing. They don't need to be fixed. They need to be dismantled. The institutions, systems of this country are not broken. They are doing exactly what they were meant to be doing. They don't need to be fixed. They need to be dismantled.
The U.S. expat writer Hilda Doolittle, H.D., lived in London during World War II. There she experienced the frightful nightly bombing by the Nazi Luftwaffe. Before the war ended, she had already published a series of poems reflecting on that destruction titled, "The Walls Do Not Fall." It's an odd, linguistically imaginative, compelling collection, melding her experiences in London with her trip in the 1920s to Egypt. In the opening poem, as if on a walking tour of London's devastation, she compares its rubble to the Egyptian ruins. There, as here, ruin opens the tomb, the temple. Enter there as here, there are no doors. The shrine lies open to the sky. The rain falls here, there, sand drifts, eternity endures, ruin everywhere. And yet the walls do not fall is no mournful lament. It is, in a somewhat oblique way, hopeful. It's there in HD's very next lines, ruin everywhere, yet as the fallen roof leaves the sealed room open to the air, so through our desolation, thoughts stir. Inspiration stalks us through gloom. HD's poetic reflection could sound insensitive, ignoring the immense loss of life, deep psychological trauma, and widespread property damage endured by Londoners. After all, who scans the mangled remains of homes, businesses, places of worship, and then celebrates the fallen roofs for the opportunity they offer to let fresh air into the sealed spaces? Just what kind of inspiration is it that stalks us through gloom? Who, seeing destruction, imagines creation? Actually, it's a common theme, showing up among other writers, artists, spiritual traditions, and natural observations. Anais Nin, in her journals, says it explicitly. I turn destruction into creation over and over again. Nietzsche found it necessary. Whoever must be a creator must first be an annihilator. Popular contemporary Chinese artist and activist Ai Weiwei is famous for a series of 3 photographs called Dropping a Han Dynasty Urn. They depict Ai as he releases a 2,000-year-old ceremonial urn and allows it to shatter on the floor at his feet. In a retrospective of his works, a quote of his appeared asserting, "We can discover new possibilities from the process of dismantling." And Zhuangzi, that 4th century BCE Taoist, observed, when you break something up, you create things. When you create something, you destroy things. How many of you think of yourselves as gardeners? Some. Imagine you discover among cultivated flowers, shrubs, or vegetables an invasive species. Kudzu, ivy, common weeds. What do? Water it? Surround it with mulch? Carefully prune it? While I assure you that you absolutely do not want me as your source for horticultural wisdom, I do recall many walks through my grandfather's sizable garden plot, a veritable Garden of Eden, fecund with fruits and vegetables. Often, he'd carry his hoe, always on the ready to dig up and extract any unwanted plant that was threatening his tomatoes, beans, corn, or cantaloupe. He was, in that act, both destroyer and creator, the bringer of destruction and of abundant life. It was what we sang earlier, based on words of wisdom from Hebrew scripture: a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill. Desiree Attaway is an Asheville-based consultant, trainer, coach, and speaker, building, she says, resilient, equitable, and inclusive organizations. In words we heard earlier, she writes, "We are born into a social system which teaches us to accept things as they are. We're rewarded for accepting things as they are. We're congratulated for accepting things as they are. We become model members of society when we accept things as they are." And just how are things? Attaway offers a grim assessment. Oppression is the norm, not the exception. Justice is the exception, not the norm. Attaway doesn't indulge the historical amnesia some now use in their claim that the election results of 2016 somehow completely altered the course of the nation. The institutions, systems of this country are not broken, she asserts boldly. They are doing exactly what they are meant to be doing. In the past couple of years, members of this congregation have been reflecting deeply on our nation's history. We are discovering Desiree Attaway is right. Oppression is not new. Injustice is not new. They weren't ever the exception. There was no golden age when our high ideals were the norm. Patriarchy, sexism, misogyny, these were underwritten by the culture and constitution of this nation. Those celebrated founding fathers expressed a shocking kind of xenophobia and anti-immigrant sentiment that would be right at home in today's dysfunctionally unfunded government. Economic injustice arrived in Jamestown and became a guiding norm for the new nation. Heteronormality, with its accompanying homophobia and transphobia, shows up with that first boatload of Puritan invaders. Religious exclusivity was enshrined in many aspects of our culture well before we became an independent nation. And of course, racial injustice. The oppression of black and brown people found unique expression on these shores, where the whole notion of race itself was created here in defense of that oppression. It found its most articulate spokespeople among some who are still being defended because they were less egregious, they were more benign in their claims to have the right to own people. Oppression has been the norm, not the exception. Justice has been the exception, not the norm. The system has worked, and it is working just as it was intended, socially engineering things to offer the greatest benefits, the greatest privileges for white, straight men of means. Thank you very much. The systems of this country are not broken. They're still doing exactly what they were meant to be doing. So, writes Desiree Attaway, they don't need to be fixed. They don't need to be fixed. The systems, the institutions of this country, they don't need to be fixed. They need to be dismantled, taken apart, undone, destroyed. so that in their place there can be a new creation. Scott Kaiser offers an intriguing diagnosis of the human condition. Our most serious difficulties with being creative as human beings are not a result of deficiencies in imagination, nor are they principally due to apathy or indifference. The ultimate problem lies elsewhere, he writes. We don't want to destroy. We don't want to participate in destruction. And he continues, because we will not destroy, we are unable to create. Because we are unwilling to become destroyers, we cannot become creators. One could, in fact, say that we don't dare to imagine new possibilities and realities, as doing so inherently destroys our cherished but limiting actualities. Apathy and indifference, Scott Kaiser writes, apathy and indifference may just be an insidiously clever disguise to escape the call to create by destroying. When I would leave my little peach-colored shotgun double home on a modest block of Annunciation Street in New Orleans to go to either the Central Business District or onto the French Quarter, I would typically head a few blocks up Marengo, turn right onto St. Charles Avenue, and take it all the way into Lee Circle. Lee Circle. I learned that landmark early in my time living there. I knew it was a grand roundabout, the meeting place of major streets, marked by a very large figure on a very high pedestal, but I never really gave it much thought. Oh, I'd heard the stories about the massive figure of Robert E. Lee atop that pedestal, about his defiant arms crossed north-facing stance. But really, who cared? Well, as it turns out, some people did care. One such person was jazz great Wynton Marsalis's great-uncle Alphonse, a man born in 1883 with whom Marsalis lived briefly as a young boy. He'd heard his uncle express often how much he detested that statue of Robert E. Lee and all that it stood for. Finally, not very long ago, Wynton Marsalis asked then Mayor Mitch Landrieu to consider removing the statue. So Landrieu reflected on it. And what he concluded was that the whole statue was a lie. Robert E. Lee was used as an example, he said, to send a message to the rest of the country and to all the people that lived here in New Orleans that the Confederacy was a noble cause. And that's just not true. Landrieu didn't send armed guards to defend the racist statue. Landrieu didn't create a bloated budget to avoid it being damaged. Landrieu didn't propose enshrining it in some grand new edifice. Instead, he arranged for a crane to come and hoist the 16.5-foot statue off of its 68-foot pedestal where it had stood for 133 years. Removed it entirely. He dismantled it. When I was back in New Orleans a couple of years ago, I made a special point to walk over to Lee Circle. What a powerfully symbolic shock. There in that circle stands a 68-foot tall pedestal with nothing on top of it. It's empty. HD would say it's open to the sky. It's an opportunity now for inspiration. The work of true societal transformation is impeded, always impeded, by those who defend the indefensible, who avoid the work of dismantling. The work of true societal transformation is impeded, always, by those who, out of fear, continue to defend lost causes. The great Nobel Prize-winning Bengali writer Rabindranath Tagore, in a long poem acclaiming the Hindu deities Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, prays, "Give us new form. Sing our destruction, that we gain new life." That's a critical component of true transformation, that sometimes only out of the complete end of the old can come the birth of the new. That only out of destruction can come creation. That only out of dismantling may inspiration stalk us so that we gain new life. May that be our prayer, our work, our hope. May we here relinquish defensiveness and denial so that a change may truly come at last. May it be so.
Good morning. My name is Karen Bringle. Waking up as a white person and being able to say, "Hello, cousin," to persons of all skin colors has been a major focal point of my life in recent years. I learned and was inspired by the invitation to say "hello, cousin" to people of all colors by Jane Elliott. Some of you may have heard of Jane. She's been around a while. She's an American former third grade school teacher, anti-racism activist, and educator. She is known for her blue eyes, brown eyes exercise. She first conducted this exercise for her class the day after Martin Luther King was assassinated. Jane happens to be a good friend of my husband Ron's first wife, Shirley. All three of them were residents born and raised in Iowa. I have reached out to Jane recently as I've been undergoing my work, and she's been very responsive in sharing some of her thoughts with me. I asked her in an email, which I'll share soon, if I could share some of her quotes and some of her statements with this group, and she was happy for me to do so. One of her quotes is, "White people's #1 freedom in the United States of America is the freedom to be totally ignorant of those who are other than white. We don't have to learn about those who are other than white. And our #2 freedom is the freedom to deny that we're ignorant." Jane also says, "You are not born racist. You are born into a racist society. And like anything else, if you can learn it, you can unlearn it. But some people choose not to unlearn it because they're afraid they'll lose power if they share with other people. We are afraid of sharing power. That's what it's all about." I recently wrote by email to Jane several things. I tell her about some of my work, some of my experiences in my community, and she responds. It's quite a resource for me. But I finished my message recently by saying, "Sunday I have been invited to serve as lay service leader at my church. The bold theme of the service is the assertion that in our society there are things that cannot be fixed but must be dismantled. To prepare for my personal reflections in the service, I've been reading quotes from James Baldwin's The Fire Next Time. I might also want to share some quotes from Jane Elliott, maybe even from Personal Communications. Would that be okay with you?" Jane responds, January 12th, "Hey Karen, make this a learning experience for the members by asking them to remember that the main fear of white folks today is when people of other color groups get power, they will want to get even with white people. Then say, will every black person in this room who wants to get even with all white people please raise your hand? Have the white folks turn around to look at the number of hands raised. There will probably only be a few. Now say, let's be honest about this. Will every black person who wants to get even with 1 or 2 white people please raise their hand? The chances are pretty good that a whole lot of hands will go up to the sound of delighted laughter from the black members of the audience. Now say, now, white folks, all you have to do is act in such a way that you aren't going to be one of those 1 or 2. Your future is in your hands." We all know that what we do in the present constructs the future, don't we? Welcome to today's service, whether you are here in this room, in our alternative worship space in the Bernstein Room, watching this service by way of our live stream, or viewing an archived video of this service. We're honored to have guests with us here today. Our members would like to greet you following the service. So that we might do so, if you are visiting, will you please raise your hand and keep it up for a moment. Members, please take note of the guests seated near you. After the service, invite them to join you for coffee and conversation in Freeman Hall. Should it enhance your experience of future services, you can find both a large print order of service and a personal hearing assistance device on the table at the entrance to the sanctuary. If you'd like to learn more about us, please fill out a yellow card and place your completed card in an offering basket when they are passed later in the service. Members with a life event to share can do so on the reverse side of the card. You'll find them along with offering envelopes on the clipboards at the end of the row. Please begin passing them down your row now. Some returning visitors may be interested in hearing about how to become a member. If so, talk with our membership coordinator extraordinaire, Kelly Green. Her contact information is on the back of your order. Again, to each of you, welcome.
Thank you, Karen, and please convey to Jane Elliott our thanks as well. I add my own welcome to the one you just heard from Karen. I especially welcome what I'm imagining to be a slightly larger group on our live stream today, given the weather conditions. Both folks who didn't want to come out or folks who perhaps worship in other places where they can't get out right now, so welcome to you as well. Many ways to be involved in the life of this congregation outside of today. Wednesday evening, we continue with family-friendly worship and a potluck. Great group here this past week. We'll do that again this Wednesday. There's information in your order about that. Another wonderful intergenerational opportunity on this Saturday. As is our custom every year, we will assemble uptown in March in the Martin Luther King Parade. It's a great chance to interact with folks of all ages in the congregation. It's a great chance for your kids to walk right down the middle of the street and have people wave at them and be really glad they're there. So join us on Saturday morning. Many other ways to be involved, just a few of which are listed in your order. We hold with love and in our prayers on this day those needs of members of the congregation known to us, including Mary Adamian, Ann Forsanito, Belinda Perry, Ron Spake, and his partner Randall Hartzell. We hold with special love concerns beyond our naming. Those that each of us hold in the silent recesses of our hearts. May love reach into the quiet with healing presence. My thanks, personally, to the many of you in this congregation who have reached out to me and to my family in these past few days. Your care and your support means more than you know. The candles on stands before you today marks some special occasion of celebration, concern, or remembrance. You're invited to come forward, please, holding the silence in the room as the offering baskets are being passed. Please join me in meditation and aspiration. O life, O rhythm, O cosmic dancer. Dear mystery, dear God, dear ineffable and unnameable, we feel you pulsating, vibrating in the tiniest quarks and leptons, and in faint radio signals arriving from some unknown source out there somewhere in the immense expanse of the all. We recognize through scientific, artistic, literary exploration, and in our own profound personal experiences, that creation and destruction, ending and beginning, dissolution and recreation are all the natural order of things. We know in our minds, hearts, and souls that the end can be the beginning. In such a world as this, may we have courage, trust, faith. May we see in the darkest of clouds some lining of silver. May we sense in the very depths of our hopelessness the rebirth of hope. May the call to destroy, to terminate, to end lead us to new life, to new possibilities. For all, anywhere. For anyone here who walks on this day through the valley of the shadow of death. For anyone here for whom hope is lost and the end looms ever nearer. For all who know that the next step will be the hardest. May there be some added measure of compassion. Some way to imagine life beyond the most painful of all endings. For all wandering on this day in the wilderness of despondency, for any faced with an unwanted conclusion, for all who see no way forward, may there be some added measure of compassion. Some way to imagine life beyond the most painful of all endings. For all who attend to our pain with kindness. For all who temper their critique with kindness. For all who move through their days guided by kindness. For all who offer out of the ashes of the old the prospect for the new with kindness. We express our prayers of thanks. And so in the pulsating, exhilarating, utterly challenging, too often heartbreaking rhythm of destruction and creation, may we be kind. May we be kind. May we be kind. Blessed be. Amen. May it be so.
I have borrowed my offertory words from Kayla Parker. We know that our financial contributions to this congregation come from sacrifice and hard work. We are so grateful for this and commit together to ensure the funds we gather collectively do a greater good for ourselves and our world than they could have done alone. Please pass the baskets now. Please join me in an affirmation of our faith, rising in body and/or spirit. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in fair weather or in foul, in good times or in tempests, in the days when the darkness and the foe are nameless or familiar, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve.
Come gather round people wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept it that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, then you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changin'. Come writers and critics who prophesize with your pen, the chair is open, the chance won't come again. And don't speak too soon, for the wheel's still in spin. And there's no telling who that it's naming, for the loser now will be able to win, for the times they are a-changin'. Come senators, congressmen, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway, don't block up the hall, for he that gets hurt will be he that has stalled. The battle again is raging, will soon shake your windows and rattle your walls, for the times they are a-changin'. Come mothers and fathers throughout the land, don't criticize what you can't understand. Your sons and your daughters are beyond your command. Your old road is rapidly aging. Please get out of the new one if you can't lend a hand, for the times they are a-changin'. The line it is drawn, curse it is cast. The slow one now will later be last, as the present now will later be past. The order is rapidly fading, and the first one now will later be last, for the times they are a-changin', for the times they are a-changin'.
From my friend and colleague Wayne Arneson, take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. Please be seated.